So, what if I told you that you could build an entire nation from a bookshelf? It sounds a little out there, right? But today we're exploring how one revolutionary leader did just that. We're going to go inside the mind of Mustafa Kemal Atatürk, and our guide isn't a map or some dusty treaty, it's his personal library. I mean, just think about that question for a second. How do you build a nation from the absolute ashes of a 600-year-old empire? This isn't just about winning a war. It's about designing a future, completely from scratch. Where would you even begin?
Well, you might begin right here, with this number, 3,997. Now, what is this? It's not a date, it's not a military statistic, it's something far more personal and, you could argue, way more powerful.
That's right, nearly 4,000 books. And this wasn't some library for show, just to look impressive. No, this was a workshop. This was an intellectual command center where Ataturk diagnosed the failures of the past and literally reverse-engineered a new republic using the lessons of history.
And what's so incredible is that we have a direct window into his thought process. A massive project was undertaken to study every single book, every note he scribbled in the margins, every underlined sentence. We can literally follow his eyes across the page and see the exact ideas that would go on to shape a nation.
So, let's get into it. What was this library really? It wasn't just a quiet room with a bunch of books on shelves. Oh no, it was an arsenal.
You see, for him, every book was a conversation. Every underline was a point of agreement. Yes, that's it. Every note in the margin was him debating an author who had been dead for centuries. He wasn't just passively reading history. He was interrogating it, hunting for clues to build a future.
Okay, so before you can build anything new, you first have to understand exactly what went wrong with the old thing. Ataturk used his reading like a surgeon uses a scalpel, to dissect the sicknesses that brought down an entire empire.
And his focus is just incredibly precise. Right away, he identifies his first target, a bloated, completely ineffective bureaucracy. You can almost feel his frustration as he underlines that phrase, calling it a terrible disease, something that's just paralyzing the state from the inside out.
Next up, he zeroes in on another fatal flaw. See this passage he marked? It points to systemic corruption that had become so commonplace, it was just a normal part of life. You can't build a new nation on a foundation that's completely rotten.
And here, he hits on the third critical failure. He heavily marks this passage, noting that education among the Turkish people was completely neglected. He knew, deep down, that you cannot build a modern nation with an uninformed population. For him, ignorance was a massive strategic weakness.
This one quote he marked really just sums up his whole diagnosis. The problem wasn't just a couple of bad policies here and there. Nope. The empire's very DNA was flawed. It was built not on the will of its people, but on the indulgence of sultans. The entire foundation was just totally unstable.
So, once the diagnosis was complete, the search for a cure began. But Ataturk didn't just look for one single simple answer. He looked everywhere, through all of human history, to find the building blocks for his new nation.
And this just brilliantly illustrates his method. On the one hand, he's deep into the great scientific and cultural achievements of Arab civilization. But then on the other hand, he's studying the history of the Huns, even jotting down Attila in the margin. He was looking for models of governance, of identity, of strength, from literally every corner of history. And the search was just relentless. I mean, from Byzantine history to Arab science, from revolutions in Constantinople to the nomadic empires of the Tatars. He understood that to build something new, something that would last, you couldn't rely on a single ideology. You had to take the best parts from everyone.
So this brings us to the final, and really the most important part. How did all this reading, all this research, actually turn into a country? This is where the diagnosis and all those historical lessons come together to form a real blueprint.
Just look at this comparison. It's almost a perfect one-to-one response. For every single problem he underlined in those books, he engineered a principle for the new republic. So absolute monarchy gets replaced by constitutional governance, rampant corruption is countered with the rule of law, religious dogma gives way to secular modernity, and widespread ignorance is tackled head-on with a national push for education.
And the proof is right there, on the page. In a book about the failures of monarchy, what's the one phrase Ataturk underlines? Respect the Constitution. He knew the only antidote to the absolute power of one person was a set of laws that binds everyone, especially the leaders. So from this huge body of reading, he synthesized these core pillars: a new unifying national identity, a secular state where government isn't dictated by religious authority, and a relentless drive toward modernization through science and education. These weren't just abstract ideas, they were concrete solutions, all derived from a deep study of what makes nations succeed or fail.
And in the end, his reputation as a thinker and a revolutionary was recognized all over the world. This book, a memoir from Egypt's Royal Geography Society, is personally inscribed to the great Ataturk. It's just a perfect testament to a leader who built a nation not just with an army, but with an arsenal of books. And that really just leaves us with a final thought to chew on. We've seen how one person's library literally became the blueprint for a nation. So it's worth asking, what's on your bookshelf and what future are you